Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo and more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.
This is Griffin Conan.
This is Xavier Edwards.
This is Liam Hicks.
This is Dave Myers, and you're watching Fish on First live.
Fish on First Live, presented to you by About the Fans. Make sure to use code FOF10 for 10% off on your purchase. I am Kevin Barral here with Eli Sussman, Alex Kruchik, Nate Karsmer. We'll probably have Alex Carver joining us. A lot to talk about.
Yeah.
Plus, maybe we'll talk some Nick Fortes. Who knows? But anyways, let's talk about the big series, guys. I mean, 3-game sweep of the San Francisco Giants. I think after that last game, we all hate the Giants. We could actually start right there. And I want to go to Nate because, Nate, you covered that game. We're all watching it. But that may have been one of the more interesting games of this series, just the way it kind of unfolded at the beginning. Then you get the benches clearing. First time a Marlins bench is clearing in a while, a really long time. Can't remember the last time it happened. It's been a couple of years for sure. But overall, just let's start with that last game.
Yeah, it all, kind of started after Logan Webb following Calvin Fauché. Keep in mind, there's bottom of the ninth in the game 2. Marlins are up by 2 runs. Bottom of the Giants order is coming up. Calvin Fauché, curveball, and then hits, is it Casey Schmidt on the hand? He overreacts, whatever. But I had to argue with the idiot on Twitter yesterday that Calvin Fauché was not trying to load the bases with the heart of the Giants order coming up. Obviously, there was no intent behind that. I don't care if Cal hit someone in the game before either. Irrelevant. Logan Webb comes out after the game, is like, it's getting to a point we got to do a better job protecting our guys, this and that. A lot of cryptic comments from a guy that pitched in that game, maybe upset about a no decision, losing to a team like the Marlins. I'm not sure what it was about. I guess on the surface, it's just him, wanting to stand up for his guys, and that's fine. Giants get 2 outs to start game 3 fast. Hayden Birdsong hits Otto Lopez right in the thigh with a 97-mile-an-hour heater, and the umpires decide to warn both teams after obviously seeing what Webb said the night before. Clayton comes out for a reason, obviously not happy about the decision. The Marlins did nothing wrong. Like I said, trying to load the bases in a 2-run game would, not make too much sense to begin with. Clayton gets tossed. And then probably one of my favorite moments from this year, honestly, instant karma. The heart of the Marlins order has their managers back. Augustine, first pitch after Clayton's tossed, ropes the double. And then Kyle Stowers, the California kid, it's just demolishes Hayden Birdsong hitting slider, 440 feet, the furthest hit ball of his career to dead center. And it kind of just started the avalanche. To be honest with you, Augustine followed it up with, I believe, 443 to left, no doubter. Bat flip was beautiful as well. And that really just kick-started an entire offensive explosion for the Marlins. Everyone in the lineup got a hit. Augustine had 3 of them, and Augustine and Kyle combined for 6 RBIs, and Wagam and X had 2 RBIs of their own. So it was beautiful. Wilmer Flores also got a little bit in his feelings, like Eli said, after striking out to Dave Gibson, felt the need to chirp the Marlins dugout. I don't know. I noted in the tweet that you really expect better from a veteran-led club. Like a lot of guys, Mike Yastrzemski, Wilmer Flores has been around for a while. Really don't know why they were so, hurt. I guess, like I said, losing to a young, fun group like the Marlins in their own stadium might get to them. They had a tough homestand, but, they definitely deserved it. Like Kevin said, I think I dislike the Giants more than any other NL East team at the moment, which I have not been able to say in a very long time. So they definitely got what they deserved. I'm happy that out of all series, the Marlins had swept this one.
Marlins fans definitely started saying a lot of stuff to the Giants, it's fair to say. But let's talk about Augustine Ramirez. I mean, great series for him overall. Eli, I think it was maybe 2 or 3 streams ago we were talking about, he's starting to struggle again. Goes to Washington, 2-home-run game. He's a series MVP. And that kind of started a nice little, kind of up again for him, like trending in the right direction. It's still a lot of hard contact despite it being out, and it's kind of unlucky to a certain extent. Like he's falling into some unluckiness. So just what are you seeing from him, in this last stretch of games that has made him look like the Augustine that we saw, early on in the season.
I mean, to be honest, the home run that he hit was a delicious cookie that he got. It was a hanger right in the middle of the plate. So I have to admit that he took advantage of a mistake in this case, and that overall it's been frustrating because he's just been consistently pitched away on the outer third, if not a little bit out off the outside corner. And his discipline's actually been all right in terms of which pitches to swing at, which ones are technically in the zone. And so often though, he's just become a little bit pull happy, so that when he's getting those pitches on the outer part of the plate, it's soft contact. It's not, as you mentioned, it's not only soft contact, but it's a lot more ground balls when he gets it off the end of the bat on those pitches away. And in this case, on that home run at least, he got one right down the middle. But in the series as a whole, he had several balls that he really barreled. And even on some higher quality pitches, aside from that one, this whole time, what's been encouraging to me is that the swing and miss has not been that problematic at all. Like, he's still well above average in terms of limiting strikeouts this season. 74th percentile in the majors is strikeout rate this season. That really hasn't dipped very much at all. This was always one that I felt he was going to figure it out at some point. And he's not totally out of the woods. We'll have to see it a little bit longer right now, because even now with this recent uptick, he still has an OBP under 300. That's not ideal. And he's still underperforming those expected stats by quite a bit. It's like 32 points in his weighted on base average versus his expected weighted on base. I was never all that worried in the first place about it, but this was an encouraging sign. And he's somebody that it really has been to me so much about the location of where he's being pitched. And he is somebody that at this stage, if you really do continue to stay away from him, it's hard for him to get at least extra base hits on that. But he can still punish mistakes, and I think overall they're gonna let him work through it. To really become to reach his full potential as an overall hitter, though, he'll have to come up with a better plan in terms of what he's going to do when he's getting pitches on the outer third. So that's really the next step. And regardless, he's going to continue to be in the lineup every single day. And overall, I think as you get near the halfway point of his rookie season, you have to be pretty encouraged by what he's done so far.
Speaking of catchers, Joe Mack just hit another home run today, so he's kind of on a hot stretch recently there. He'd gone
40 games without a home run very quietly, and that's another one where it's just a reminder that we don't want to microanalyze these guys over really small stretches, especially when they're so young, because they can be streaky. But yeah, that is good to see with Mac. That's 2 home runs in the last couple of days for him to get back on track. And yeah, as we've talked about for so much of the year, the Marlins have a very good problem long-term at the catcher position.
Yeah, we know how they could solve it. Crutch, Cade Gibson continues to be awesome for this team. There's no other way to say it. A 1.80 ERA, 2.79 FIP, barely walking guys, just putting the ball in play a lot, just coming in huge in that San Francisco series, pitching 2 out of the 3 games, going 1 1/3 in each outing. And he was kind of not a reason why, but the benches were cleared after his strikeout of Miguel Conforto as well, too. And he was showing some emotion. I mean, nobody thought Cade Gibson would be on the Marlins 26-man roster just a couple months ago. Like, what are your thoughts on him so far, and how big he's been reliable too? Now they have 2 lefties, thankfully. But I mean, at one point, Gibson was the lone lefty in the bullpen, and they were really relying on him.
Well, yeah, before Gibson, Anthony Veneziano was the lone lefty in the bullpen, and it just felt like they were using Veneziano anytime they wanted a lefty, whether it was high leverage or low leverage. So it's nice to have another lefty in there now, especially a guy that could get those high leverage spots, because you kind of touched on it there before, but, like, he's not just a lefty specialist. Like, it's kind of gotten to the point where, like, I'm cool with him being in there in high leverage spots kind of regardless of the matchup. Now, part of why he's so good in those high leverage spots is because he's gotten favorable matchups. But, like, he's actually doing better in those high leverage situations than he is in the lower leverage situations. In high leverage situations, he's got 25 plate appearances against in high leverage situations. Batters are hitting 143 against him in those spots. Like, he's a dog. Like, he's really one of those guys where, like, I got to be completely transparent. I did not know much about this guy when he came up. The only thing I knew about him when he came up was he's a lefty. And that's only because I looked at the roster. But he's one of those guys now where, like, I want to see him warming up when the game gets tight.
Other guy I want to touch on is Josh Simpson. pitched twice again in this series. Looked really good. Has a nasty curveball. Added some pitches to his arsenal just to complement, what he already had. But Eli, like, just another guy who probably not many people saw coming, but he pitched in a very crucial game, and that was in I want to say the first game for the Marlins against the Giants, and then pitched in that second one. Didn't look great, but overall, I mean, he's been fine. But it's another guy who finally got the call up after in 2023, getting called up but not debuting in a game. Finally debuted, and he's been fine. I mean, I think it's a decent piece to have. That could be used in multi-inning situations as well. Like he's been. It could be a swingman type of role. It could be an opener, if anything. Like it's a decent piece to have for the Marlins. You're muted.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes with him. I've been at times extremely excited about Simpson when he had sky-high strikeout rates early on in his minor league career, and then since then it's just he's very reliant on that curveball just because his fastball quality, especially last year, kind of dipped out. I'm going to pull this up for a second. What he did so well in that last appearance, that sequence that he faced, it was Heliot Ramos right here. These back-to-back curveballs I thought were just amazing from him. Kind of showed what he has to do to be at his very best is when he's able to get both whiffs in the zone with it and then also able to backdoor it like that, back-to-back pitches in different spots that serve a different purpose that really complement each other. That's what it's going to take to be effective against right-handed batters, is being able to command that curve, not just dropping it in the way that he's able to do and take advantage of minor league guys. It will be an interesting adjustment for him. I'm glad that he's had some success in this most recent outing in order to ensure that he sticks around a little bit longer. We've seen how the Marlins and a lot of other teams, honestly, manage that bullpen, where I think in this moment, he's not necessarily in a second lefty spot. He's kind of the last man in the pecking order right now, in a way that if he gets overused in a particular game, you can imagine them sending him down for a fresh arm at some point. So there's a lot of pressure to continue to have success, at least in terms of run prevention and in terms of being efficient in his outings whenever possible. But it's great because he is one of the few homegrown Marlins on this roster. You look at this team, so many of them are trade acquisitions, or as we've noted so many times these past 2 years, Bendick special is these waiver claims. But Simpson is one that was drafted by this organization way back in 2019 and bided his time. And as you mentioned, he had that, he thought he was going to debut 2 years ago and then got DFA'd and squeezed off the roster and had to make it all the way back and come back from an injury. It's a very cool story to have. Overall, the bullpen was awesome during this particular series. They went up against this Giants bullpen that I think most people would consider the best bullpen in baseball, and they very clearly outpitched them head to head in that particular way. These past few days, really, it's just every facet of this team for the first time this season, for a stretch that they didn't even do at all at any point last season. It's every facet of this team that is performing pretty well. That's the only way that you end up sweeping two out of the last 4 series, I think it is, and to win 9 out of 13 games overall. This is, for a brief stretch, everything is clicking at the same time in a way that is allowing them to, as we're speaking right now, longest winning streak of the season so far.
And it's refreshing.
Go ahead.
Sorry, it's refreshing because I saw this take on Twitter, which is just there's no black holes on this roster right now. Let's see how long it lasts for, but for the last couple of weeks, it does feel like we're watching a team that is competent everywhere. They're still not the most talented team in baseball. They're not even top 15 in terms of overall talent. But for the first time in several years, it feels like everyone is at least competent at doing what they need to do on the field.
Hey, they're 11 and 12. I mean, in the month of June. Never say never. I'm joking. But a big reason why the Marlins have been so much better this month, I mean, especially within the last 2 weeks-ish, is Kyle Stowers. I had an awesome series, currently running a 4-game hit streak, hit the home run, as Nate noted, in that last game. Maybe making a push for the All-Star team, Nate. Maybe making the push to be their representative. Maybe one final push. I mean, the numbers overall still look awesome on the season. And, partially due to just the great start he had. But, I mean, if you want to, I don't know. I mean, where do you stand with the All-Star situation right now? Is it still Edward Cabrera, who had an awesome start against the Giants? Is it going to be Kyle Stowers? Where do we stand right now with who the Marlins representative will be?
I've been leaning Kyle for a while. Obviously, when he had that little that prolonged stretch of swinging and missing and striking out a ton, like earlier this month and at the end of May. I was kind of leaning towards Dane, especially as he heated up, but I think Eli tweeted out yesterday that this is really just perfect for him. Just this late little resurgence right before they announced the All-Star game players, that he's just, pitching it right back up, getting a little hot streak, hitting that homer, which is huge. I believe, what was his homer was that on Sunday against Atlanta, his first homer in like around a month or so, I believe. So that was huge for him. Just to get the power back as well. Had a triple in that Philly series. When Kyle Stowers is hitting for extra bases, that's when he's on. And he's continues to impress. So I think if he just keeps it going for a little bit more, doesn't need, hit multiple homers a series or anything, but keeps hitting on base, keeps walking, which is going to be important, and strikes it a little bit less. I think Stowers is going to run away with it. Obviously, no knock on Dane, but he did struggle a little bit last series, as evidenced by that, I don't know what to call it, him breaking the batter over the knee, which is always impressive. And Edward Cabrera continues to dazzle as well on the mound. But I think safe pick right now is definitely Kyle. He's had an amazing season, and it's still such an amazing development for this team.
Pull them out.
I just want to look for an excuse to use the GIF. This is one of my favorite GIFs of the whole season. The thing is,
nervous, man.
Things change really quickly with somebody like Dane, just because of the missed time and through no fault of his own, the way that he was being used early on in the year, where he just wasn't starting consistently at all. And even now, people continue to have gripes where when he's in the lineup, he's still buried towards the bottom of the lineup and therefore not getting as many plate appearances as he could. But because it was so much of a small sample, he has one bad series and all of a sudden his OPS is under 800. I think his batting average is barely above 300 in a way that just a week ago or so, he was separating himself quite a bit from everybody else on the team. And now it's more or less in line with Stowers, and actually a little bit below Stowers in some key categories, a little bit below Liam Hicks in some categories as well. So throughout the process, I was always leaning Stowers, just because one, he has those really defining moments from opening day, the walk-off grand slam against Mason Miller, above all else, that really helps. But beyond that, just the volume of being in the lineup on a close to an everyday basis this entire season, his ability to hit both lefties and righties, all those counting stats. The tricky part is just how they fit on the roster relative to other players, because the outfield in the National League is so deep with other guys that you just wonder who is going to get snubbed that's actually having a better season than both of these guys in order to make room for a Marlins outfielder. As we get closer, you see some spots where it might work, unfortunately, due to injuries, for example. I wonder if Corbin Carroll, he's been so amazing, but if he's going to be hurt and he's not going to be able to play in the All-Star game in a couple of weeks, then that's how one spot may come open. And you take a close look at it, and if they're going to go with the most deserving player, as of this moment, I think I would go with Stowers. They still have, is it just a week? I think it's just a week and 2 days, maybe a week from Sunday, when they lock in all the reserves. So still some time for this to move back and forth. But like Nate, I think that Stowers is in the pole position as of this moment.
Alrighty. So Ken Rosenthal came out with an article today. We'll quickly touch on it. He didn't say a lot, but I think it's better if we just get your guys' opinions. So he noted Edward Cabrera, Sandy Alcantara as the two names that obviously the Marlins are going to be fielding calls on, the two probably best options that the Marlins have to trade. And then on the position player side, Jesus Sanchez. Sandy getting the start tomorrow is obviously your day today, but since we're not going to be live, in the month of June, he's been awesome. I mean, a 2.7 ERA, 3.2 FIP. He's been good. And I think at this point, what you want to see is maybe a little more length from Sandy. His last start was 6 innings, before that 5. And then, three out of his last 4 starts have been 6 innings. He said it himself. He wants to go deeper into games. He wants to go 110, 120 pitches. Krutchik, right here, right now, do you think the Marlins end up trading Sandy, first of all? And then second of all, just to kind of touch on Edward Cabrera's last start against the Giants, which was really good. Goes 5 1/3, 6 strikeouts, gives up 2 runs, 3 hits, 3 walks, 1 homer. Talk about Cabrera's start, and what would you do with Edward Cabrera, who has 3 years of control after this season, I want to say. He's already ARB eligible, so he's only getting paid, I think, $1.95 million, very little. But that salary is only going to go up, especially after this season that he's having right now. So the Marlins are going to continue to have to pay that salary. We've seen them, trade guys even before they were ARB eligible, like a Jake Berger. They've traded guys who are ARB eligible already. So where do you stand with those two guys? What do you think they'll do? And then we could open it up to obviously Eli and Nate.
Yeah, I'll start with Sandy. The boring answer that I have is it depends on what the GMs of other teams, how they balance what we know about Sandy versus what we saw in the first 3 months of the season, or sorry, first, let's say 2 months of the season, because it was terrible in the first 2 months. It's picked up a little bit. He's still not the Sandy that we know, but he's definitely better, and he's shown that the first 2 months were probably an anomaly. So as a GM, how much value do you see in a guy when you know what he was before the injury? And he's gotten better since those first 2 months out of the gate, but how much better is he going to continue to get? Is he going to get back to how he was pre-2023? Or is this just a new Sandy where he goes out and, he'll give you a 3.5 or a 4 ERA? If other teams don't give enough to replenish this farm, I say hold on to him. Like, he's such a valuable guy, and I was only willing to part with him if he was going to get you an absolute haul that would change the complexion of this franchise. And as of right now, I don't know if teams are willing to do that. I'm sure he has value. I'm sure they could get a good guy or two, but I just don't know if it would be enough to change the complexion of the franchise. So I would hold on to him and see if he gets better and returns to the old Sandy form over these next 3 months, and revisit this in the offseason, knowing also that in the offseason you usually don't get as big of a haul as you would at the deadline when the stakes are at their highest and teams are in the middle of playoff runs. As for Edward Cabrera, he's one of those guys where I forget how young he is. I know we had this argument like a few weeks ago, but he's 27 years old. It's really crazy. And so if you truly believe that he has figured it out and this isn't just a flash in the pan, I would hold on to him. He's got 3 years of control. If you think that the Marlins are less than 3 years away from being competitive, which personally I think they are, he could be a guy that contributes to your team when you're competitive again. It's not like he's on his final year of his contract, so it's like, okay, we either got to pay him now and possibly set us back because we got a lot of money tied up into him, or we trade him away because we're not competitive right now. He could be here when the Marlins are competitive. And if he pitches the way that he's pitched this year, he will be a genuine contributor to a playoff team.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Crutchik kind of touched on something that I think is pretty important that comes out pretty often in all the commentary about Sandy, is returning to vintage Sandy or the Sandy of old. And I don't know what people mean when they say that, whether they think he's actually resembling a Cy Young winner, or whether he's resembling his career averages, or whether he's resembling the 2023 version of himself, which was a frustrating season for Sandy in 2023, where there was all these really random blow up innings. He was working deep into games and he was being efficient and he was throwing strikes, but he was getting hit a lot harder than usual. And like the overall numbers were fine. He was a good number 3 starter, maybe a low end number 2 starter under like regular circumstances, but it was nowhere close to who he was the year before. That 2022 season was such an outlier. I know that I've watched 99 point something percent of every pitch Sandy has thrown in the big leagues. And I have watched 100% of the pitches he's thrown this month. And this is not the Cy Young version of himself. Like, there's very clear distinctions, even though the velocity is all there. And even though the ERA looks kind of similar to 2022, the swing and miss is still down considerably. His changeup, most specifically, is not close to the kind of pitch it was in 2022. That was a huge elevation for him, allowing him to get swings and misses a lot more against lefties. And a big issue he's still having this year, he does not get very much swing and miss at all. It's way below average, even most recently, compared to an average starting pitcher, in a way that I think really limits his ceiling. There's a reason why he's still not having a ton of success deep in the games the way that he did in 2022. And again, to Crutchik's point, I don't think that there is going to be that franchise-changing haul out there unless something magically flips over this next month. It's not going to be simply continuing what he's been doing. You mentioned it, Kevin. He has not gone beyond 6 innings. That was the most extraordinary part about Sandy, is how he could work deep into games during that Cy Young season and get better as games went deeper in a totally anomalous way. And we've not seen that whatsoever this year.
No pitcher.
Yeah, at this point, at no Marlins pitcher. Yeah. And at this point, It's just 5 starts left until the deadline for him to. I don't think he's going to dramatically change people's perception of him in that way. He would still bring back a lot in return because it's a limited supply of even mid-rotation starters that are on the market during this deadline. That contract that he has is very team-friendly for most teams, not for the Marlins, but for most other teams. The salaries that he's locked into these next few years are very favorable. He'll still bring back a considerable amount in return that would help the farm system. To me, I continue to lean on the side of there's a scenario where it just makes a whole lot more sense to let this season play out and have him hope that he really takes off in the second half of the season. He has improved as this year has gone on. They could trade him, but I don't think he is the guy right now that teams are dying to have them lead them into the postseason and carry their team. He's not looking like an ace right now, even though the ERA has been good as of late. I say that as somebody that I feel like I have some authority just having watched this guy and looked at the numbers. It's even though it's trending in the right direction, they're really running out of time for him to flip the switch and be a true horse again right now. So I'm fascinated to see how this goes. Just to reiterate, because of the limited supply from other selling teams on the market, he might be the best pitcher available at this deadline. And we have seen in the past that there's a surprising amount of talent you could get back, even for very mid pitchers at the deadline every single year from contending teams. It's just that I think no matter how desperate other teams are watching him right now, they're not going to confuse him with the 2022 version of himself. So to me, when I see all this commentary about him getting back and closer to what he used to be, I think if he gets closer to that career average version of himself, or even the 2023 version of himself, that'd be reassuring just because of how bad April and May were for him heading into this. It's just, to me, it's still a long road back to it potentially being a true ace again. And there's still a question, and people don't want to think about this, but there's still like a question of if he's ever going to be a true ace again. There aren't very many guys that have careers like that, where they have multiple seasons where they're consensus one of the very best pitchers in the sport. It's a tricky situation. But I trust in his work ethic, and I think he'll continue improving as he gets further away from this injury. I'm just saying that I still see a pretty big gap between the peak version of himself and what he's been doing lately.
You think the Marlins would have to take on some of the money to trade him?
I mean, I guess it depends on which particular team. I think the contract is a positive, though.
It is. I agree.
Yeah, I that's something that you could take on, depending on the situation. If you take on more money, you generally you do it because the other team is more willing to give you more talent back in return. So yeah, in the right situation, they should. We kind of glossed over this all season, how little the Marlins are spending on payroll. They are going to line up to be dead last in all of baseball in spending this year. So once these rumors really heat up with Sandy, I think it is going to be worth reminding people that the Marlins should take on as much money as they possibly can in any type of deal, because they're cheap enough as it is based on their current situation. And by taking up more money, if they're going to make some of these very divisive deals, then you need to get as much talent in return as you can. So that is something that there's no excuse for them not to eat as much money as possible if it comes to that.
And so aside from Sandy, aside from Edward Cabrera, Nate, who else is there? Does bullpen, it's been all right. But, Ronnie Henriquez, who at one point looked like the prime guy to move in that bullpen, has been on and off. Oh, yeah, there we go. That's the guy right there, too.
I'm just joking.
Who else? Who else, Nate? Like, who else can you move?
I surprisingly haven't heard a lot of buzz about Cal Quantrill, who obviously got off to a little bit of a rough start this year, but he is on the classic one-year deal. I'm not sure what they're going to get for him. It's definitely looking better than what they could have got for Tim Anderson last year. So at least they took a little step up from the one-year deal compartment, compared to last year. But I think Cal could get you maybe. I'm not really sure on the package exactly, because I haven't really seen, like I said, any buzz on him. But he has looked a lot better as of late, kind of returning to his career averages, I should say. Anthony Bender, who has gotten a lot of attention recently, and for good reason. He's been a lot better as of late. Obviously, he's got that frisbee off speed and the hard sinker. So I think you can move some guys in the bullpen. And bat-wise, Kevin, Nick Fortes, man, he has value. I do not think he's going to be traded. But like I said, catchers, you never know at the deadline. But outside of that, not too many bats. But I think obviously outside of the big two, Sandy and Eddie, you got maybe some guys in the bullpen like headlined by Bender and then Cal, depending on what they're going to get for him. But I think you're going to find the jackpot with these two. But I think they're going to trade one or the other. That's what I think.
Hey, they could trade Sanchi, so we'll say there.
Oh, I forgot. Yes, sorry, completely forgot about Sanchi. I think Sanchi is by far the best bat they're going to deal. I think he's going to be gone. Similar to Eddie, that I hit on this last stream, but they're really making adjustments that we haven't seen. They're really kind of coming into their own, I guess. Eddie definitely more so than Sanchi, but I think this is going to be the highest value for Sanchi, at least that we've seen thus far in his career. So I think it definitely made sense to move him, especially with the bats that they have in the outfield, even on the roster now that are coming back next year, like Griffin.
Well, not just that. I mean, it's crazy to say, but it feels like they have a surplus of outfielders, especially in AAA with Pintar, Marcy, VMJ. Like they've got guys, Heriberto, Derek Hill's about to come off the IL. Like they've got choices to make.
Yeah,
and
not to change. Yeah, not to change.
Heriberto Hernandez appreciation.
Shout out to Heriberto Hernandez and the fact that they all of a sudden they do have a ton of interesting outfield guys. I don't know if there's a consistent all-star there. We think there's probably going to be an all-star this year from their outfield in terms of moving forward. It's just a lot of different guys that are interesting in different ways. And the way that Hernandez has performed in the big leagues and the way that Jacob Marcy has performed this entire month in the minors. I was trolling the MLB Twitter account because they put up this big hype tweet about Spencer Jones, who is a very high-profile outfield prospect with the Yankees, in his numbers this month. And Marcy has almost identical numbers this month that are actually a little bit better in every single category for a guy that is about a foot shorter than Spencer Jones is. The amount of slugging that he's provided, in addition to stealing 40 bases this season already, barely midway through the year. And to remind people, he's from the Luis Ariz trade. And that's just another guy that you can make the case it should debut this year, that there's not a whole lot for him to prove left in the minor leagues. We liked him a lot at the time of the deal. He's been streaky offensively since he's been in the organization, but it's yet another guy that's not even on the 40-man roster yet, but is very interesting. So they have a lot of options in that outfield moving forward that makes it, for anybody that's really attached to Jesus Sanchez, I think some people are, and they love his tape measure home runs. He's had a solid career, but he is really trending towards being expendable just because of how many of these other bats, both lefty bats and righty bats, some of them that can play all three outfield positions. They have guys that just playing the odds, I think a couple of them could wind up having just as good a career, if not slightly better than Sanchez.
Alrighty. So speaking of trades, the Marlins, pulled off a big blockbuster the other day by moving Robinson Pena, the recently DFA Robinson Pena, to the Toronto Blue Jays in exchange for, I found it like an interesting return for the most part. Converted infielder, selected in 2024, Colby Martin, who was with the Blue Jays. So he's now a reliever. So from infielder reliever, and he throws gas, and he's been solid for the most part. Eli, if you want to kind of just touch on who Colby Martin is, and we will move on right after that. But it's newsworthy. It's another prospect that goes into the system. High A Beloit going there, and he's been fine. He's been a decent reliever for them thus far.
It's a situation that I give some credit to this front office for signing Pena on a minor league deal and flipping him into something with him only pitching. I think it was one inning in the big leagues, and that was enough. It was more so what he did in play. He was very good in Jacksonville's rotation for most of the year, and that was enough to give him some actual value to bring back a guy that was drafted 16th rounds last year by the Blue Jays, a late rounds reliever that has been awesome at the low A level. Very recently got promoted to high A, and that's where he'll be in the Marlins system now moving forward. He's just got a very intriguing fastball that sits 97, that can top out at 100, even 101. That has good ride to it on top of that. And that's a good it's a good base for any late inning reliever, is having that fastball that's hard to hit, that he throws enough for strikes in order to keep walks relatively manageable. And he's been almost unhittable so far this year. That's against low A competition, much younger competition. He's one of many guys that typically they get to the double A level, and that's how you find out who they really are. So he's just getting his feet wet at high A. If things go well, maybe he gets a taste of Pensacola at the very end of the year. But it's another guy where probably next year is when we'll find out whether or not he's he really has much to offer here. It's still kind of a wild card where most of these guys don't make it, even if they put up great numbers in the low minors, that once they face more age-appropriate competition, some sort of bug pops up. So still more to prove. There's a reason why he fell almost to the very end of the draft last year, but it's something, and it's something that they got basically for nothing by originally signing Pena to a minor league deal. Congrats to Pena getting called up. So that was you, right, who had him in the call-up contest?
The call-up contest point, yeah.
Yeah, you got just enough to check that box off, and good luck to him going to his new organization. So, yeah, good for everybody involved, but we'll find out more about Martin in the years to come.
I want to talk about these lineups because the Arizona Diamondbacks are in a interesting situation. They're currently 41 and 39. They're kind of in this weird moment where they're either, you don't know if they're a clear buyer or a clear seller yet. And if they come out here and sweep the Marlins and find themselves, on a little bit of a hot streak, they could potentially be trade partners with the Marlins with, Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, two guys who are on one-year deals now. They could add another bat to their lineup with Corbin Carroll hurt. So we could talk about the trade stuff if you want a little more, but I want to talk about the injuries that have really hurt this Diamondbacks team. Like, if you look at that bottom of the lineup, it's not good. It's Jake McCarthy, Alec Thomas, and Herrera. Jose Herrera, I want to say? Yes, Jose Herrera. So, Eli, talk about this Diamondbacks team. Now, again, top of the lineup looks great. Perdomo, Marte, Smith, Josh Naylor hitting over 300, Eugenio Suarez. Lourdes Gurriel been on and off, but for the most part, decent. Like, it's a good lineup. It's, I think, just been more of their pitching that has really struggled for them this year, especially Gallen and Kelly.
When they're fully healthy, it is, I think, the deepest line. Well, I still say the Dodgers probably the deepest lineup. They might be second when they're fully healthy. To have everybody here, and also Corbin Carroll, and also Gabriel Moreno as their catcher. Both Moreno and Carroll are out for a little while on the IL, and that is what leads to the depth issue, where that bottom third of the lineup is very pitchable as things currently stand. But they thought they would have a much better pitching staff than they actually do. Really, the first domino that fell was our boy AJ Puck early in the year. It was even within a month of the season going down with an elbow injury. Pretty soon they find out it's serious. They try to do the rest and rehab approach, and then he has to undergo Tommy John. So he's out for most of next year as well. And that stinks because he was pitching so well for them down the stretch last season and then early on this year. That was the first domino. But then it's just been a combination of both the bullpen and the rotation stinking it up, where Corbin Burns is now the biggest piece that they're missing, of course, given his resume, how well he was pitching this year. He's out for the entire year deep into next year. Their closer, Justin Martinez, another elbow injury, another season-ending issue with him. And Zach Gallen is the real enigma because he's the one that's making every scheduled start, and he's still pitching. And he's pitching the worst that he has in his entire career by far. I just watched his most recent outing against the White Sox. And for people that were worried about Sandy early on this year, Sandy still has a higher ERA overall, but Gallen right now is the one that's way more lost and further away from the peak version of himself. It happens when he's heading into a walk year, too. He's about to be a free agent. He was in line to make a Corbin Burns type deal. It's not somewhere in that neighborhood. Like, there was the potential there for him to get a similar huge deal, whether it was from the D-backs or somebody else. And now we're halfway through the year, and I think he's allowed the most walks in the National League, maybe the most home runs as well, where it's an issue both ways. So a couple underperformances from the pitching staff, a lot of injuries on both sides of the ball. They're still a little bit above 500 right now, but you just don't know what you're going to get one day or the other. It depends on how many home runs they hit at this point, where it's how much can Naylor and Suarez and Ketel Marte carry them on a particular night. And those guys can carry you pretty far, but especially in their current division, it's hard to see any path where they win the NL West. And so it's a tricky spot where do they feel they're close enough to be buyers at the deadline in order to tie up some of those weaknesses, especially on the pitching side, or is it just not worth it for them? Because I think they are spending more money on their team this year than they've ever spent in franchise history. It's a reverse Marlins situation where they're pushing all their chips in right now, and I don't think it's enough to get them even into the playoffs, just given the injury luck. It'll be fascinating to see what approach they take, but this is every single game for them leading up to the deadline is huge, probably as much as any other team. Their focus on the next month is going to really determine whether they're buyers or sellers. If they are sellers, they have a lot to offer because Naylor is a pending free agent. Suarez is as well. And those guys can get you a lot in return from other teams if they end up being sellers. If I had to predict, I think they're going to wind up in that latter direction where they're not quite close enough, and they roll the dice on some internal replacements, but end up shopping some of their pending free agents because they could do well for themselves as a seller. It would just be a big disappointment, of course, given how much money they spent and how the fact that they were in the World Series less than 2 years ago.
Yep. Ketel Marte is having himself an awesome month of June. Unfortunately, just in the news for the wrong things recently with the fan, but he's hitting 365 with an OPS over 1,000, 449 on base percentage, like hitting second in that lineup. Former future Marlin Ketel Marte. But Krutchik, thoughts on the Diamondbacks, thoughts on Ketel Marte, Geraldo Perdomo. I don't think anyone saw him doing what he's been doing. It's got off to an awesome start this season too. Was one of the best shortstops, and yeah, I mean they're certainly in an interesting situation right now where they really need to win this series. Like they need to sweep the Marlins pretty badly.
Yeah, I think this is one of those. I don't know if there's a term for it. If not, there should be. But this is one of those series where it is going to decide if they're buyers or sellers. It's the final series of the month of June. You're playing the Marlins. If they get swept, they will be sellers. If they sweep, they might be buyers. The top of that lineup will still slug you to death. It's still going to be a tough battle for Marlins pitching for that first half of the lineup. It's going to be a very turbulent time for those first 4 or 5 hitters. Pitching, the Marlins could take advantage of some pitching. The Diamondbacks rotation has not been good, as you guys mentioned. And that front end of the bullpen is not very strong at all for Arizona. And I will say the back end of that bullpen, Shelby Miller and the other pitcher whose name is escaping me right now, are putting up pretty good numbers. So the first 7 or 8 innings, you got to really jump on them because that'll be your best chance of scoring against them.
So Yuri Perez on the mound tonight had a pretty good start against the Braves for the most part. It kind of came crumbling down in that 5th inning. 6 strikeouts, 4 hits, 3 runs, 3 earned, 2 walks. Nate, thoughts on Yuri so far? Gotta think maybe 5 innings could be in the works for him if he's been efficient. Seems like not that there are restrictions, because obviously there are, but it seems like these restrictions are a little bit more looser than what we saw in 2023. It seems like 90-something pitches, he could go 5 innings. Like if he's efficient enough, he could go 6 and give the Marlins some length, some much needed length.
Yeah, definitely. I like that you mentioned the part about them kind of taking the training wheels off finally for here. I think they definitely learned their lesson that, even if you can try and go easy on a guy all you want, but it's not going to matter in this day and age of baseball. And I love that out of Yuri. He's looked a lot better after his first 2 starts. Obviously, probably a little bit jacked up. That start in Pittsburgh, saw some signs of Washington, but that start against Atlanta last week was really good. Obviously, facing a really tough lineup, fouled a lot of balls off, had to fight hard for a lot of outs. But when he had to, he made his pitches. He looked really good. I didn't get to watch much of that start, but from what I did see, spotted a lot of his off-speed well, had that beautiful fastball that I believe is at 99 up in the corner. So he's looked good. I think, like you guys have mentioned, that this Diamondbacks lineup is not in its best state right now. If he just gets through that probably top 1, 2, 3 of that lineup, I think he'd really go. Pitcher's park, that is Chase Field. So I believe if he settles in first couple innings, gets to feast on that bottom of the order, I think we could see Yuri hopefully go 5, and never know if he can get in the 6th, that'd be a huge success and really set the tone for the rest of the series with guys that have like Yuri himself have been looking a lot better as of late.
Another guy I wanted to touch on was Connor Norby, and we can just go to the Marlins lineup. I don't think he's in there today. Yeah, he is. He's hitting 8th. Wow, who would have thought? Hitting 8th, but had a great series against the Giants, going 5 for 14 with 3 RBIs, 1 stolen base. Only struck out twice, which is impressive for him. Eli, how much do you think that'll help him? Did you see anything different there from Norby in that series overall? We talked about the struggles. I know Carver noted them. We all noted the little things. What did you see from Norby in that series that we didn't see the last month? Honestly, this last month of the season, this June, where he had been pretty bad.
I can't say I've seen much different. What we've noted before is some of the things that limit his ceiling, his swing decisions, his over aggressiveness, especially early in counts, but we even saw last year that he could have those flaws and still be a solid offensive player, one that hits closer to the middle of the lineup than the very bottom. He has been drawing more walks as of late than he ever has during a similar stretch of his career, and that is something. I feel like watching those walks that a lot of the times it's been non-competitive pitches. I'm trying to remember which game it was that he had that. I think it was just yesterday's game where he had that really ugly strikeout, chasing a couple of pitches way up and in, and he took like back-to-back really awkward swings. In a way that I thought that was one of his worst at bats of the whole year, because I think he was ahead 3-1 in the count, and then he took those terrible back-to-back swings to turn what should have been, if not a walk, then a more productive at bat into a strikeout. So yeah, I don't think a lot is changing. I also feel that he's, even with these flaws, he's better than what he's shown this year. So it's a mix of both, where I think he's better than the numbers, but at the same time, he's not going to be a guy that you love as an everyday player if he continues to just be this over aggressive and going after pitches that he shouldn't. So he's still been in the lineup on most days, but we've seen Javier Sanoja nibble at some of his playing time at third base more so than expected heading into the year, and I think that's fine. But yeah, to me, it's still the way to succeed with his profile is if you're still hitting for the kind of power he was the second half of last year. That was the big pleasant surprise, how much he could slug, especially to the opposite field or to even a straightaway center, that he had the power to crush extra base hits without even having to pull the ball. And there's been a lot less of that, even lately, where he's been compiling more singles. But as I look at this, the last time that Norby had an extra base hit was the 18th. He has one extra base hit in his last 13 games, and that's just not going to work. He's a guy that's going to have to get those a lot more often. So if he's not barreling the ball with more frequency, then he's just not going to be a very good player. So to say that, I'm still concerned about the long-term ramifications. Third base is one of the few positions in this Marlins organization right now where you look forward and you don't love the alternatives coming through the pipeline, where Norby felt like the best chance of being that everyday guy at third base. I think he's been adequate enough defensively. Like, I don't think the defense is going to eliminate him from being a third baseman long term. Now it's flipped back more towards the offense. And to me, it's been a little bit of a step back from last year, mainly just because of that power not being quite the same. So he was supposed to be a guy more of an Eugenio Suarez light, a guy that Suarez has a very flawed profile, but he's had a great career because he's still able to slug. We're still this is going to be a huge half season for Norby as I think about it. We'll get into it more on future streams, but I think he's one of those guys near the top of the list that has the most riding on the second half of the season. He's not going to have this permanent super long leash to prove himself. This is a very important year for him, and to this point it's been a disappointing year.
Yeah, I mean, Nate, just take us through this lineup. First time Sanoja's playing in 5 days and playing in the Giants series. Only played one of the games in the Atlanta series. And Kyle Stowers DHing for the first time in a bit. Looks like the same top 4. So we're finally starting to see some sort of consistency within the Marlins lineup.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I finally like them. They're using the same archetype that they've found success with over the past week. That 1-2-3. That's Jesus and Otto worked really well in San Francisco. A lot of them have been really heating up at the plate recently. In the middle of Augustine, Kyle, and Weideman, and then the bottom's kind of a toss-up all day. You can see Liam Hitz in there a lot, but Norby and Dane, of course, mainstays in that bottom part as well. But a lot of these guys, man, have been really hitting their stride at the plate, which really leading to a lot of these wins is the team effort that these guys have compiled. So can't really hate on this whatsoever. Honestly, Eric Weideman had a great series in San Francisco. After the Giants tied it up yesterday, he came up with 2 outs, which I have to also add. The Marlins were awesome with 2 outs yesterday, as they've been all season, but I believe 5 of their first 6 runs all came with 2 outs, and it was capped off with Weideman's double into the gap to put the Marlins back in the lead and, eventually lead them into that route they had yesterday afternoon. So up and down, it's looking really good. Eli praised Heriberto, as I think we all should. He's looked awesome at the plate, and finally seeing Sanoja back in there is good for my guy Steve from the Herald. I know he loves him, so everybody's going to be happy to see Javi back in there.
Yeah, you wrote a whole Sanoja feature. I didn't see that one. Yeah, good. Yeah. What else? Well, I guess in the spirit of the trade deadline, what's one player that could fit on the Diamondbacks that's on the Marlins? Any of you could take this.
Any of the pitchers that we mentioned, like if the Diamondbacks want to keep pushing towards the playoffs, even with all the guys on their injured list, like one or two arms will get you there. We already mentioned, like, even with the injuries that they have in the lineup, it's still a pretty formidable lineup. Like, their pitching is just awful. So I think Edward Cabrera would fit in well there. Sandy, it's just a matter of if Arizona would be able to give us in return what the Marlins would want.
Yeah. On the subject of Norby, the one interesting wild card trade chip that D-backs have is Jordan Lawler, who was formerly one of the very top picks in the draft and one of the highest rated prospects in baseball a year ago. He's gotten a couple of coffees in the big leagues and he's been terrible. And that's why, as of this moment, I don't think he's on their active roster. He's gone up and down, and the bat has not translated at all, despite being dominant in AAA, despite still being really young. And he's been playing, in their minds, he's supposed to be the successor to Suarez at third base, it seems. Now that they have Perdomo locked up long-term to be their shortstop. So he could fit long-term with their plans. But at the same time, if they feel that they have a chance to win it this year, and given what I mentioned, where I don't think Norby at this moment is cemented in the Marlins' long-term plans, just given the step back that he's taken this year, Lawler is a guy to me that has a higher ceiling. He'll be a better defensive player, and I think he could be a more complete hitter, even though he hasn't shown in the big leagues yet. That'd be an interesting piece where he would have been completely untouchable, I think, last year. But now that we've seen him struggle in limited big league opportunities and the clock is ticking, I think he only has one minor league option beyond this year, in a way that actually depreciates his value a little bit. I feel like he could be attainable if the D-backs are really totally sold on either Sandy or Eddie to join their rotation. I still think it's unlikely, as I mentioned. This D-backs team, unfortunately, I think the injuries are going to really slow them down over the next month. But if they are buyers, then yeah, you start with the starting pitching, and something could work. But these teams have been partners quite a bit through the years in trades with different regimes. So it would, as recently as last year, making 2 trades with each other alone during deadline season. So that would not surprise me at all if they found some way, even on a really small scale, to help each other out.
Yeah, and I think obviously with the injury to Corbin Carroll, this outfield looks pretty depleted. But I think Jesus Sanchez should fit well. Obviously, you don't want to throw him in center at Chase Field. I think that would be an absolute disaster. But maybe throw him in right instead of watching Jake McCarthy play. I think that could be a great fit as well. I just checked the D-backs farm system. Not as nice as it used to be. You do have a potential buy low with just checking Baseball America, Drew Jones, who was the 2nd overall pick in 2022, was already falling down to 6th in that system. So just looking at that potential buy low, but outside of that, and Jordan Lawler, yeah, not too much going on there. But you never know with Peter. It clearly likes dealing with Arizona.
Hey, Carver, if you're watching, they could use Nick Fortes. I mean, look who their catcher is right now. Gabriel Moreno's injured. They're just desperate for Brian McCann, who's on their team now.
Nick Fortes for Drew Jones straight up. You heard it here first.
Let's do it. All righty. Let's go to prediction time.
Let's do it.
This is prediction time.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, a lot more games than you think we're going to win this year.
He's been right as of late. This surge, I did not see that coming. This 2-week stretch has really separated this team compared to where they were last year. I wrote about this a little in official news this morning, that there is, all of a sudden, this is looking like a legitimate step forward from 2024. So you got to keep it up, though. We'll see if they do during this stretch. This is the peak at our leaderboard for prediction time, including our staffers, our super subs, and our live stream guests right there. Not much movement during this last series because people did not foresee a series sweep at all across the board. Just 1 point here, 2 points there for people to move up. And I continue to struggle where I keep just winding up on the wrong end of these hot streaks and cold streaks with the Marlins. Still a few minutes left, 15 minutes or so to the first pitch, that if you're a super sub, you can leave your prediction on the site or in our Discord server. We keep track of it all season long. How many games the Marlins are going to win, who's going to be the series MVP is determined by win probability added. It could be a player from either team, regardless of whether you have them winning or losing. So let me get the background set up and let me get the music going. And then Kevin, whichever direction you want to pick us in, it's your choice.
Let's go with Krutchik first.
All right, hold on.
All right. I've got the Marlins taking 2 out of 3. I think they forced the Diamondbacks to become stellars I think Augustin Ramirez is going to take advantage of that hot, dry Arizona air, and he's going to lift the ball at least a couple times. I'll go with him as my MVP.
Nate.
I've been pitching against the Marlins a lot recently, and they've been winning. So if that's the sacrifice I have to make to see the Marlins win some baseball games, I will continue to do it. I have Arizona winning 2 out of 3, and leadoff man Geraldo Perdomo was had a little bit of an iffy start to a season. He's taking over the reins this time.
I'll go. The Miami Marlins will sweep the Arizona Diamondbacks, 7 wins in a row for the hot fish.
Oh boy.
And I'm going to go with Otto Lopez as my series MVP. He's had a nice series in San Fran. Let's see if he keeps it going in Arizona.
He certainly has. I have the Marlins winning this series as well. I think they take 2 out of 3 against Arizona. And keep the good vibes going. Starting pitching, with few exceptions, has been just really consistent for this team. This may be the weekend where we finally line up a high-quality Yuri start and a high-quality Sandy start back-to-back. That would be a joy to watch. And I'll go with Javier Sanoja as my series MVP. Pretty well rested. He has not played much at all these last handful of games. I would think that he's going to start 2 out of 3 this weekend and maybe even come off the bench for the other one. Sanoja, as far as the utility guy goes, he has just a lot of the potential to really disrupt games with timely hits in high leverage situations. So I think that is going to give him the win probability he needs to snag series MVP and for the Marlins to finish off a extremely successful West Coast trip if they do in fact take 2 out of 3.
And you missed the high quality start from Kyle Quantrill, but I'll let it slide. All right, we'll wrap it up here. Marlins and Diamondbacks in just about 12 minutes. So from Eli, from Nate, myself, we'll see you guys all on Monday against the Twins back at home. Peace out. Go Fish. # Team Kevin.
Fish on First has partnered with About the Fans to launch a merchandise collection. Rep the FOF logo in more Marlins-inspired apparel. Find it all at aboutthefans.com. Enter coupon code FOF10 at checkout to get 10% off your order. FOF10 for a 10% discount.